And folks, in this podcast today, we are going to be grading this draft. I know what you're going to say. It's way too early to grade this draft. Give it about 3 years or so, and yes, we will grade it then. But let's just see initial reactions and how we did. That's coming right on up. And folks, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Greg Sykes. I am your host, along with my co-host here, Brandon Scott, the one and only. And this channel is dedicated to news and commentary for the Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, please make sure you have subscribed. And when you do, also hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases. Become a Maniacs member today. It's only, what is it? I don't know. I don't know how much it is. Haven't been pushing it. It's either $1.99 or $2.99. I'll probably lower it to $1.99. But yeah, become a Maniacs member today. Support the channel. You can also support this channel by going to our partners, Mint Mobile, if you want to save a ton on your wireless cell phone bill. So we had this little event Thursday night, Brandon. They call it the NFL draft. It's kind of become this big thing for the NFL. And for the Washington Commanders, we were really, of course, leading up to the draft. It was all about quarterback, and we got our
Oh, yeah.
man. At least we feel like we did. But we're going to run through all of these draft picks. We're going to try to do kind of a lightning round going through each one of these draft picks. And Brandon's going to give you his grade. Honestly, I'm still on a few of them. I'm still trying to figure out what grade I'll give them, but
Yeah.
we're going to run through this really quickly. And Brandon, I tell you, you were not quite as impressed with the draft as a lot of people, and we know usually you're going to have one or the other. You're going to have people who's going to say, "Man, this is the greatest draft that the Washington Commanders have ever had," and then you're going to have others going to be like, "Man, this front office does not know what they're doing. Nothing's changed, so just get ready for more suckage." I don't think you're in that camp. I think you were not quite as impressed with this draft, but doesn't mean that you don't think that these players are necessarily going to, you know, bust out or anything
Yeah.
like that. Um, uh, but anyway, quickly, we're going to just run through these. Brandon, I'm going to uh, give you my well, I'm going to give you each one. I'm going to let you run through it. We're going to put up these draftees on the screen here. Okay, Brandon. Pick two, Jayden Daniels. What do you give that grade and why?
Oh, easy. A plus. I mean, franchise quarterback. I mean, he's excited about coming here. I mean, shows all the intangibles of being a dual threat monster in the NFL. I mean, he's got weapons, he's got good coaching, he's got a GM that's willing to find the right pieces around him, he's got the ownership that's going to invest in him. I mean, it's just best case scenario for all parties. I mean, he's just the guy. I mean, I'm very impressed with him. Now, obviously, there's some things he definitely needs to work on, obviously. Left tackle, we're about to talk about in a little bit. He's going to be running a little bit this year. So, definitely protecting himself. He's got to learn to slide. Don't lower the shoulders, try to make it through tackles, slide, protect yourself. Two, thrown over the middle, especially if you look at the new slot receiver we're about to talk about in a little bit. He's got to learn how to utilize these slant routes and hit guys in the middle. So, he has some work. Obviously, he has to get used to the speed of the NFL, but playing in the SEC, SEC is one of those conferences where it's a very NFL ready conference, in my opinion, with a lot of prospects coming out of there. So he should be all right. So, I mean, A plus. I mean, we finally found our franchise quarterback. Now let's keep him healthy and go from there.
I think I also give him an A plus. I went back and watched that Alabama game that LSU had, and I watched
Mm.
that today. Well, I actually started last night, watched the rest of it today, and just very impressed by the poise, by how fast Jayden Daniels is.
Yeah.
I mean, it just made everybody else look like they were in slow motion. Talking about staying healthy, it did take a shot there. Honestly, I thought it should have been a rough in the passer call, but it wasn't called, and he took a shot high up, and
Yeah.
he basically was out for a concussion protocol for the rest of that game. Of course, they lost that game, but I mean, he had a monster game. and just so that I felt that was a great game to kind of showcase what Jayden Daniels can do. Even though they lost that game, definitely I'm very excited for Jayden Daniels. So we're going to go into the second round. Johnny Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois. I thought this was a head scratcher. What do you think, Brandon?
Yes, similar. I mean, I'm gonna try to look at this from both perspectives. One left tackle to me has had to be the priority, and I was expecting a left tackle. There's, I thought at that position, we could have grabbed a couple of people. I mean, Kool-Aid was still on the board at cornerback, so I definitely wanted us to pick up Kool-Aid. I thought we were in position to get him. But I'll say this: the only way that this move makes sense is looking kind of into the future. I mean, he is a first round talent. And they say that he could be pound for pound the best D tackle in this draft. So we definitely got. I mean, he's a good value pick because you got a guy who could potentially be a starter. You look at the contract situation with Jonathan Allen. Maybe he's a trade candidate. He could slot right in there with Deron Payne long term, or. So I think there's a lot of possibility because he's a dog. He can play. I mean, he is a disruptor in the middle at Illinois, man. So I mean, it's a good pick. It's just to me, looking at Jayden Daniels. We finally got a franchise guy. My biggest emphasis was trying to protect his blind side. So, at that position, if it wasn't going to be left tackle, I definitely wanted to show up an area like cornerback. Kool-Aid would have been the perfect pick. But he's a baller. He's a dog. He's a disruptor, and I think he's going to come in. But like I said, the only way this really makes sense, Greg, is for the future. Now with all the noise, what Jonathan Allen potentially not wanting to be here. Could he be a trade candidate, especially looking at, the history between Jayden Daniels and Brenton Ayuk from the 49ers? Could that be a trade scenario? Because we definitely still need another wide receiver. So, it makes sense for trade assets or for the future. But, we're going to talk about left tackle. But, I get the pick is a great value pick. But to me, still, left tackle or even a high upside player. And not to say he's not high upside. He's very high upside, but at a position of need. And so, like I said, I mean, if you look at it from a depth perspective, I mean, Fedarian Mathis, he's always hurt. Ridgeway played well, but he's a guy, who could be a future starter. I think it remains to be seen. So, good value pick. Just, I think there was other players that could have been picked at that draft position. So,
I would say from the pure aspect of, not even thinking about need, I think it's a plus because like you said, I think he could be one of the best defensive tackles in the draft. But from a need perspective, I would give it maybe a C plus because, to your point, there were guys on the board at that point that we needed. A good number one corner, maybe an offensive tackle, and we just didn't pick that up. So it was a little bit of a head scratcher to me, but at the same time, that kind of lets you know that Adam Peters is looking at the future. He's going with best player available, basically, for the most part. Now, it's not that necessarily straight through. I think there were some picks that they decided they were just going to grab. But I think for the most part, he was looking at best player available because, eventually that's how you build your team. If you have Pro Bowl players all across the board, you're going to be in it. You're going to be a contender for the Super Bowl. So I kind of see it. Right now it doesn't quite make sense, but maybe it will make sense a little bit later on. Now, I felt, okay, we did get our corner. So the next pick was pick 18, or I'm sorry, pick 50. And this was Mike Sainristil, cornerback out of Michigan. What grade do you give him? He's more of a slot corner, I believe, but what do you think about this one?
And I didn't even grade the previous one, so I'm gonna do that grade real quick. Looking at the grade real quick for Johnny Newton, I'm gonna give it a B plus. Like I said, I get it, good value pick, but we had needs, but I do see the future fit with Johnny Newton. I think he eventually is gonna be a starter. He's gonna replace Jonathan Allen, in my humble opinion. Looking at the corner now, let me looking at the positives. He's a dog. He's tough. I mean, his IQs are off the charts, man, and he's shown leadership. Definitely for again a pro style defense in Michigan. So I definitely see him as a contributor. I just don't know where because I mean right now he's not a guy you can really slot in to be a number one corner. I mean, and he, like you said, you said he's better served as a slot corner. I mean, with Quan Martin, what's the future with him? So again, I was a Kool-Aid guy. I feel like we definitely needed to go out there and find a number one corner. He doesn't fit the bill. I like his makeup as being tough, his football IQ, but his size limitations too. He's on the smaller side. So I didn't I see the talent, I see the potential, I see the athleticism. I felt like there were better players that could fit our needs at that point. I mean, he's definitely a good player, in my opinion, and I think that he's definitely going to add to the culture here in DC. It's just at that position, especially both of the second round picks, I feel like we could have found potential starters, and I don't see him being a starter. Looking at the depth chart, I mean, currently, your starters are Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St. Juste. So he is slotted to be the fourth corner right now. So, at that draft position, I feel like we could have did better, but I do see the potential. And like I said, too early to judge Adam Peters. Like I believe he is a really, really good GM. I'm a big supporter. I'm behind him. So I think that I agree with you. Looking at the this first three picks, you're looking at not so much what can they provide in the the immediate, is what can they do in the future. And in future wise, I think he definitely is a really good pick looking at the future. So I'm going to grade it. I get that last one a B plus. I'm gonna give it a B. He's got intangibles, he's got IQ, he's got the dog in him, and we got the coaching staff that's gonna coach him up. So hey, we'll see.
Yeah, I really don't know how to grade him just yet. I think right now I'm just going to be in the middle. I'm just going to say like C plus until we really get to see what he can do, and we can also get to see what our corners do in a new defense. I know that Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. is going to really get the most out of these players. So, it also comes down to, do these players just mesh? Is there something about these guys, character wise and whatnot, was the reason why that they picked them? So, as they said, they're dogs. So let's see if Mike can be a dog in this defense. Moving right along, this was a pick that you really liked. I really liked as well. Ben Sinnott, tight end out of Kansas City State. I actually give this one. I'm going to give this one an A minus. I'll go ahead and give him my grade. I really like this pick. I think we're going to need a good tight end. I think you fit the bill.
I am right there with you, A minus. I think this is a really good value pick because he was slotted to get chosen a lot earlier. I mean, he's a guy who can definitely go out there and catch balls, man. I mean, and he can block. He offers blocking value, so he's athletic. He's definitely a reliable pass catcher. I think he's definitely a future starter. Because Zach Ertz, how long do we really have with him? I'm looking at it purely a 1 year audition, pretty much. I think that Sinnott is definitely the future tight end. And looking at the depth chart, man, I mean, I just had it pulled up. Lord have mercy. I mean, John Bates, I think, is still, we have a really good tight end room now, in my opinion, because John Bates definitely need to work on his pass catching, and then we need to go ahead and develop Cole Turner. So, I mean, when it's all said and done, we have three pretty decent tight ends. So Sinnott to me is a future starter. So definitely an A minus. I love his potential because he kind of bridges the gap between young corners, where one's a pass catcher, the other one's a blocker. He can block and he can catch. So that's why I think that he definitely has a leg up of being a starter after this year, in my opinion. So definitely A minus. Big fan of this pick.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to win him over Cole Turner. The talk was Cole Turner didn't really block, but this guy does everything. People have compared him to George Kittle. Hey, that's great. Let's hope he can become our George Kittle. I think he, being able to learn behind Zach Ertz as well, that's really going to make this guy even better, in my opinion. Then we go into round three. This was another one that maybe not quite a head scratcher because we did need an offensive guy, but he's really rated as a guard, Brandon Coleman. But he can play offensive tackle. It's going to be iffy if he can really move into that left tackle position. I think if you're putting him in a left tackle position, this is going to be trouble for him right away. But honestly, besides Lucas, I don't know who else you're going to put in there. So this pick, I'm probably giving maybe a C minus, because there's so many question marks with this. But it was a kind of a, it's almost like a player of like, can he be able to move to that tackle position? If we just drafted him as just a full blown guard, then I would say, hey, this was a pretty good pick. But we really didn't need guard. At least I don't think we need guard just yet. But again, this could be a future one of those future picks where 2-3 years you reevaluate and you're like, man, that was a steal of the draft. So who knows? But would you give Brandon Coleman as far as a grade?
I'm roll with you, Greg. A C. I mean, I get it from a long-term perspective, but even in the long-term perspective, is he really slotted to be a long-term left tackle? I mean, he definitely looks better at left guard, in my opinion, long-term. Now, I mean, you see the potential with him, especially at TCU. He's got great potential. I mean, I think he could definitely be the long-term answer, either left tackle or left guard. But I felt like we had better choices a lot earlier that could slide it in and been our starter and been a dominant starter from day one. And I'm hoping he works his tail off and he is the answer. But right now, in my opinion, I you got two backups that are fighting for a left tackle job between him and Cornelius Lucas, because neither one of them really scream, ready to start right now. I mean, really, you can argue that Lucas has the upper hand just because of experience. So I see it from a long-term perspective because he's gonna be able to fill one of the needs on the left side of the O line, but we still need a left tackle, in my opinion. Cornelius Lucas is still a backup, in my opinion, and right now Brandon Coleman has to be developed. So C, I'm gonna give it a C. I mean, if he has a good training camp and we see what we have in the preseason, maybe it's a C plus. But right now, I felt like we were in position to get a left tackle, and we kind of settled for Brandon Coleman. And nothing against Brandon Coleman, man. I'm excited to see what he can do in here in DC, and I'm definitely welcome to DC. But I feel like we could have found a day one starter earlier than that, and so we'll see.
Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking of with this is that maybe there's still something up Adam Peters' sleeve where maybe there's a player he's getting ready to trade, and maybe we pick up somebody in a trade. I don't know, but it does seem like so far we're rolling into the season very thin at left tackle, only with Cornelius Lucas and Brandon Coleman. Either one of those guys gets hurt, I just thank God that we picked a very fast quarterback. That's all I can say because he's probably going to be running for his life. I'm just hoping that Cliff Kingsbury designs a lot of plays that roll out to the right because I think that left tackle position is going to be a big question. Moving right along to finish the third round, we got Luke McCaffrey. Now, I really like this one. He comes from a football family, as you know. Ed McCaffrey was his dad, played wide receiver for the Broncos. His brother plays for the 49ers, so it's in his blood. I feel like he has to exceed or succeed, I should say. And he may not be, he's probably going to be like one of those slot receivers, somebody coming in doing all the grunt work. He's probably be competing with Pringle and shoot.
De'Ami Brown.
De'Ami Brown, Jameson, Crowder,
Yeah.
possibly as well. But I don't know. I just really like this pick. And it's probably solely because of his name. But I'm going to give it at least a B minus. So, he's not going to be. He's actually. He's 6'1", so he's not a short guy, so that's kind of good. But is he the wide receiver? Do you think we need it?
I felt like they were better receivers on board at the time, but I do see his potential, and I do like this pick. I feel like there were better candidates especially the second round, but I'm gonna get past all that. But the name, he definitely comes from good bloodline, man. His dad was a heck of a receiver, man, and his brother's a dog. So he definitely. Look at him; he's got some speed. He's explosive. He's big. Former quarterback, so he's definitely a skillful. The athleticism is through the roof. So we'll see where he slots because I think the biggest question and what's really intriguing is where did they go forward with the wide receiver group because right now it looks like Jahan's probably gonna be opposite of Terry, so you're not gonna have a really big receiving group unless they we'll see what De'Ami Brown is. De'Ami Brown really a slot guy? He's more of a guy who you say go long, but he's not a guy who's really gonna hit a bunch of slants. He reminds me a lot of Deshaun Jackson, a guy where the deep ball he's money, but a guy who's often struggled, in the middle of the field. So how they address slot, maybe you see what he can do. I mean, maybe he can be a slot guy. I can see him being very active with special teams too. So, I see the potential. I see the potential. I mean, like I said, he comes from a good bloodline, man. I mean, definitely an athletic family. So I'm intrigued to see what he can do. I'm that's going to be one spotlight player I'm going to look at in training camp and definitely in the preseason, man, because I want to see how good he can really be.
Jumping right along, we're going to go into the fifth round, and now it is pick 139, Jordan McGee, linebacker out of Temple. We definitely cannot be accused of not addressing the linebacker position in this offseason. What are your thoughts, real quickly, on Jordan McGee?
I like this pick. I give it a B plus. I like this. It's a good depth pick. Definitely adding a young guy who's got high motor and he's a dog on defense, man. Adding him to because look, here's another thing. Bobby Wagner. How long is he going to be around? He's definitely in later stages of his career. So, with his signing, it's mostly a leadership signing to kind of show the ropes to the younger guys, especially Jamin Davis. So I look at it as a depth move, and I see he could definitely develop possibly into a future starter. Because looking at his tape, I was very impressed by him. I mean, he's a guy who can definitely play in the NFL, in my opinion. So, and I mean, probably this year you're probably looking at him as a special teamer, and he's definitely going to compete for snaps. But like I said, he's going to be sitting behind Bobby Wagner and learning. And that's probably the best case scenario for this guy because he can play, sit there for a year or two, and learn behind one of the best. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at with him. So did I give you a grade? Oh yeah, B plus. So.
And just remember, we did not pick up the fifth-year option for Jamin Davis. So this could be a replacement for Jamin Davis. Don't know. We'll have to find out. But I would also agree, probably a B plus. I'm just so happy that the Commanders are actually addressing the linebacker position. And to your point, being able to learn behind Bobby Wagner, that's going to help anybody in that linebacking core. So I'm really excited. I thought it was a pretty good, solid pick. Finishing up the fifth round, we got Dominique Hampton, safety out of Washington. That was one of the positions they said that we needed. So where do you think he's going to work into?
I'm gonna grade him as man C. I'm gonna give him a C because again you see the potential, but then his man coverage skills are kind of definitely need to be worked, man. He can be he can be a detriment to the defense sometimes with his coverage skills from what I've seen in his tape. Also undisciplined. So flag issues here and there. So I mean, he's got impressive size and he's got some speed to him. So I look at him and really from the run game perspective, he's money in run, stopping the run, but in coverage is where he definitely needs work. So I see him more of as gunner and a special teams guy in mostly. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a C. You see potential, but right now, just going off his tape, I don't see him being anywhere near competing for a starting job. So.
This is probably the one thing we need to think of as well is the fact that these guys, you mentioned special teams. We need to make sure we got guys who can really play special teams. So if he's able to really, get in and some playing time as a special teamer, as to your point, a gunner, and be able to really, make some plays on special teams. Maybe he's a rotation type of guy, especially on plays where we feel like it's going to be more of a running type of play. So I looked at it as more of a depth thing. I think when you start to get into the fifth round, you can either be drafting starters or you can be drafting practice squad. It seems like it's really up to the player. How hard, what are they going to do? Do they actually have it in them to start? And so sometimes you get starters in the fifth round, sometimes you don't. So remains to be seen with him. Now, rounding out our 2024 draft was Javontae Jean-Baptiste, edge out of Notre Dame. So we did address the edge position again. Definitely a position we needed to address. Round 7, he's probably going to be a rotation guy. But, I mean, if we look at it, 2018, he redshirted 2019 played all 14 games as a reserve. 2020 started 3 of 6 games, 6 tackles, 1 sack. Started 3 of 17 and 21. Had 1.5 sacks, 14 tackles. 22 played in 13 games as a reserve. 2023 led the team with 10.5 TFL. I'm assuming that's tackle sacks. 5 sacks, played in all 13 games with 12 starts. So really had a breakout year. It looked like in 2023. Plenty of experience in college, but probably going to be more of a rotation guy, depth guy at edge.
Yeah, I'm a grade him a C. And looking at him, look, he's a battler. He definitely has high motor. That's one thing I saw about him is that he definitely plays hard, man. He's got some heart. And he definitely has some tools, man, that can, definitely develop. But I definitely see him as probably a practice squad guy, a guy who could probably get some snaps, but he's a developmental guy. He definitely needs to be developed. I mean, he's got some possible skills that you can develop, but right now, like you said, in the 7th round, rarely do you find, a starter, rotation guy. So I can see, well, most of these picks, if not all these picks, you definitely see the potential. He did strike on potential and athleticism with his draft. Just when, with Jean-Baptiste, he's going to have to be developed. So I'm looking at him as a practice squad guy, but not a bad pick in my opinion.
So that's basically your 2024 draft there. Overall, Brandon, what would you give that grade?
Ooh, man. I'm going to give it a B.
I love putting him on the spot.
Right? I'm going to give it a B because you see the long-term vision behind it. I felt we had needs, and I don't feel like the needs were addressed, and that's why they kind of take a slight hit. But it's not a bad draft per se. You definitely see the long-term outlook in a lot of them. Now, Jayden Daniels is definitely going to be a guy who's going to come in and start right away. I mean, I think we all know that. He's QB1 from the get, but you see the long-term potential. I'm not really down on the draft. It's just we'll see. I think right now, I guess my opinion is I'm going to put my faith into the coaching staff and the general manager. We got to put faith that this coaching staff is going to coach these guys up, and we'll see. There's been many drafts where there's always guys that are like often overlooked, and they come out. I mean, Cameron Curl, man, did we really expect him to be, to play the way he did? And he came out and he was a later round guy too. So, I'm gonna put my trust into him. I have nothing negative to say. I'm gonna put my trust in Adam Peters and his coaching staff to do what they were brought here to do. So, we'll go from there.
Yeah, I would probably say that the initial reaction to the draft, B minus, maybe C plus, with the potential of in a couple of years that grade rising to be an A as we start to kind of see the long term outlook and the reason why that those guys got drafted when they did. So, it's one of those, it's like initially right now, if you are a guy that's or a fan, you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, these are the positions we needed and this is what we drafted. So I can't be on with this draft. I'm giving it a C at best. But if you get, again, if you look at it as far as like best player available at those positions, you could probably see how that you can grade it as a B. And I think if you're looking at it that way, and you're also looking at what's going to happen in the future, then it has the potential, I think, of being a much better grade as far as the draft. So, it wasn't too exciting. I mean, I watched the, of course, the opening night. And then after that, I just kind of kept up with it throughout the day. So, I'm just I'm happy that we're over it now. Now we can put these guys to the test and actually start seeing what they can do on the field. So just real quickly, we're not going to really spend a lot of time on these guys, but here are the undrafted guys that we signed. All of the Washington Commanders ladies are just loving this pick. I have to admit, Brandon, he's a pretty handsome guy. I love those black locks. He's got it going on. I have to say I'm happy for him. Sam Hartman, quarterback. So we got to have a Sam at quarterback anyway, right? This is our fifth quarterback on the team right now, so it kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen with Jake Fromm, what's going to happen with Driscoll. Um, can this guy come in and at least get a practice squad position? Maybe he lands at number three position. But I had mentioned in one of our mock drafts, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Peters goes out and gets another quarterback, and he certainly did. As undrafted guy, but he gets another quarterback. Moving along, we got Austin Jones, running back. This is one that kind of came up on a lot of my drafts too, and I think in one of my many drafts that I did, I probably drafted him at some point. So we get a running back. I feel like you can't never have enough running backs. It's almost like wide receivers feel like you can't just never have enough. And then we go with another defensive back out of Pittsburgh, AJ Woods. 29 career PBUs, great showing at the Hula Bowl. Outstanding pro day with a 4.3940. So I mean, very versatile guy, and maybe this guy is able to work himself in. Again, that's another position I feel like you can't never have enough of, is defensive backs. Fellow Hokie here, Norrell Pollard, defensive tackle at Virginia Tech, signed with the Commanders. Tyler Owens, another defensive back, this time from Texas Tech, one of the most athletic prospects in the class, regardless of position. So there you go. We get into one of Deion Sanders' guys from Colorado State, Shaguzi. Oh man, Shaguzi Anuism. I probably horribly killed his last name, and I really apologize, but that's the best I could do. But cornerback, of course, Colorado State's going to say you've got yourself a good one. So who knows? Who knows? I mean, let these guys come in there and compete. I mean, if one of these undrafted guys comes in and becomes a dog, I don't care if you draft it first round or you're not drafted at all. Just show us that you can play. Michael Wiley, running back, another running back. This one out of Arizona. Bo Bauer, a linebacker from Notre Dame, joins his quarterback buddy. Ben Nickel, safety out of Iowa State. So really looked at a lot of the defense with these undrafted signings. Marcus Rosemeyer Jack Saint, wide receiver out of Georgia, who's a Senior Bowl standout, career high production this season. 6'1", 195 pounds, 33-inch arms, 10-inch hands. So pretty decent sized guy. And oh my dear Lord, I am not the one to try to even pronounce some of these names, and I was trying to practice this name before the video, and I still didn't give it. David Nawogua. I can't even. Brandon probably can pronounce this much better than I can. But anyway, offensive tackle. So we are picking up some depth at offensive tackle. He is a Toledo native, former Rocket Dallas Gants. Okay, no, that's something else. So I don't know much about him. But there you have it. The unsigned draftees, or I should say the unsigned, the signed undrafted draftees. I don't know. You know what? At this point, I've blown it. So there you go. So we did sign some, what I consider some good solid guys. Some guys who possibly are going to be, a lot of these guys are going to be practice squad guys, but maybe some depth. You look at the Toledo signing for offensive tackle. Maybe somehow he steps in and gives us some depth on that. Any of these guys you have any comments on?
Nah, not really. I mean, Hopefully they work out, man. That's all I really got to say.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's like the only one that I even thought was what I liked was, of course, um, I mean, come on, this dude right here. I mean, yeah, I went on Twitter, and all of the ladies are coming out of. I didn't even realize we had that many female fans on the team, and we're probably going to wind up having even more after they see this guy. So they're going to be crying if this guy gets cut. But yeah, just I saw Twitter and I looked. I was like, hey, I'm straight as an arrow, but the guy's a good looking guy. He's a good looking guy. I'm gonna have to keep him away from my wife. So there you go. Overall, folks, I think that the draft is definitely got our quarterback that all of us should be very excited about. The other picks, I think again they're good value picks. I think they're going to be even worth more. I think in the future. Right now, I'd say let's see. I don't know how these guys are going to work into rotations and things like that. But I think that's the reason why we had such an excellent free agency. You definitely got some guys who are going to ball in free agency in some of these positions. So, yeah, out of everything, certainly Brandon, the offensive tackle position was just a head scratcher. It's like you almost felt. I mean, we both of us were talking about in past videos that we said, um, you know, after quarterback, this has to be like 1B, and they just didn't address it for some reason. So, I, you know, I would say this: if there is a scenario that we trade somebody maybe mid-season for an offensive tackle, who do you think would be good trade bait?
Oh, easy, Jonathan Allen.
Yeah,
Easy. That would be the first guy I would think of because I mean he's shown displeasure in the past. I mean, I think what is this? This is what his contract year, right? So he's a free agent after this season. So I think that's a big reason why they took that guy out of Illinois in the second round because he could potentially be the starter next year. So, like I said, I get it. I get it from a value standpoint. I totally get it. It is a really good pick. If you look at, you got a first round value. You got a first round pick in the second round. So it's not too shabby. And like I said, a lot of people are high on this guy to the point where he very well could be the best D tackle in this draft. So, I'm not too upset with this draft, but left tackle, all I can say is, Jayden, pack your running shoes, man, because he's gonna be running a lot, man. He's gonna be definitely, I mean, a lot of bootlegs this year, man, especially going to the right. So, we'll see.
yeah, we'll definitely see. I mean, again, you're going to have some fans who felt like the whole draft was a knockout of the park, and I think it can still turn out to be that way. We're going to, we'll revisit this, Lord willing, 2 or 3 years down the road. We're going to revisit this. Just like I had some videos where I went back and revisited the 2020 draft, 2021, so forth. And so we'll do that, closer to 2027. We'll go back and we'll be like, okay, Brandon, let's go back and look at the 2024 draft, and let's see how this graded out. Let's see how many of these guys are still with us at this point and how they're doing. So remains to be seen. But folks, it's over now. We got our quarterback. Now we're ready. We're actually ready for the season. So let's bring it on. I mean, I know, yeah, we still got several months to go, but we at this point now we're going to just be focusing on. We'll do some videos on kind of focusing on each one of these guys and kind of break them down and really dissect them and see what it is that they can help the Commanders out with. Mostly of course, the Jayden Daniels video will be fun. It will be pretty easy to do that one. But, some of these other guys, it's going to be a challenge. So, we'll break it down. We'll kind of dissect this and go through and see what we think about these guys. So, With that said, folks, I think we're going to end it for tonight. Just enjoy having my buddy Brandon with me as always. He really helps lift up this channel. So, folks, if you're enjoying this content, please make sure you subscribe. Hopefully, we've earned your subscription with this podcast. And with that said, Brandon, I guess we'll see them in the next one. So, hell to the Washington Commanders. And I know some people don't like hearing that. I'll still say hell to the Redskins, hell to the Washington football team. Just go for it, buddy. Hell.